Today on Pots and Trowels I'm going to be planting a spring container which is brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden, Mr Fothergills and Allett. Hello, welcome to Pots and Trowels. What I thought I'd do today is just plant a very simple spring container, just something to add a little bit of colour and texture to the garden through the spring months until I'm ready to plant the main summer container. So it's something that's very easy to do. You don't need an awful lot of plants, but it's just nice to get that little bit of colour into a container that you can put by the back door or somewhere. So first thing you need is a container. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be plastic, it can be terracotta, it can be one of these sort of fake old-fashioned galvanized ones. As long as it's got some drainage holes drilled in the bottom, that will be perfectly fine. But what I'm going to use is just this old wooden crate. It's an old apple crate that would have been used on an orchard many years ago to pick apples, and what I've done is I've lined it with this coir hanging basket liner just to stop the compost from falling out through the sides. But you could use moss. If you've been raking your lawn and got lots of moss, you could pack some of that on the inside. Would look really decorative through this gap, or even black polythene. It will be disguised when we've planted it. What you do need though is to make sure that the compost doesn't fall out through the base. So I'm just going to put in here an old compost bag which has been punctured, so that again just stops the compost going through and just seals in a little bit of moisture. And then it's a case of topping it up with some compost, and because this is only going to be planted for a few months, here we are middle of April, this is probably going to be emptied by the middle of June, so a couple of months at the very most. I'm just going to use a multi-purpose compost there, so fill it with multi-purpose compost like that. I don't need any extra fertilizer in there because that will keep them going for that length of time. And then I've got a selection of plants that I want to put in, and we want some colour of course, so I'm going to put a bit of height at the back. So for that I've just got a few shrubs, and this is a lovely one. You probably know this better when it's in bud. This is Skimmia rubella that is available to buy in garden centres from September onwards, and it has these cones of deep red flower buds. They almost look like little berries, but at this time of the year, April, they open and they'll flower now for the next month. These lovely little whitish pink flowers there that have got the most delicious sweet scent. So it's a lovely one to put near the back door because you'll smell it when we get a bit of warmth on a spring day. So that's going to look really lovely. This one here is a hebe, a lovely purple leaved hebe. As the weather gets warmer, this purple intensifies. So again, really attractive and a nice contrast. It's good to get the contrast of flowers and foliage colours. And then I've just got a very small little euonymus here, one that I'm growing on from a cutting. So it's going to have an important role to play in this container as well. So this is one of the microphyllus type, quite upright, makes a nice little dwarf specimen shrub. Now when I come to plant them, if I were planting this up permanently, I would knock them out the pots and tease the roots out if they're pot bound and plant them into the compost. But because these are only going to be in here for a couple of months at the most, I'm going to plunge them in. So I'm actually going to leave them in the pots that they're in. That way I'm not going to disturb the roots. When I take them out, they can either go in the garden if you're planting a new bed or border, pop them up and use them in a container in the autumn. So I'm literally just making a hole in the compost and planting them in the pots, so filling them round. So that works really well, this method, for any temporary containers you're planting. So we'll put in the skimmia there. I almost took it out the pot. You see, I'm so used to taking things out the pot. Leave that one in the pot, just plunge that one in there, just a bit of compost around it to hold it in place, and then we can put in the little euonymus there. So it really is very simple and quick to plant a container like this. Then I want something to trail over the side, so for that I'm going to use this holly, ivy in fact, just testing. It's not the best one, but it's going to look fine over there because it's going to have other plants around it, but it just helps to hide the front of the container. So again, I'm just going to push that around and lean it over a little bit so it's going to trail, and it's got some nice long traily bits that will look great. Now I just need a little bit more compost then to top this up roughly to the top. So a bit more of the same compost so we can then put in some seasonal colour. And for that, I'm going to use some pansies, some violas, and some primulas that are going to look lovely for the next couple of months. So what have we got? Well, I've got these lovely, lovely old-fashioned primulas, a type of polyanthus. They're absolutely lovely, these flowers there with a gold edge to them, really old-fashioned ones. These are true perennials, they come back year after year. They're as tough as old boots, really hardy. So again, I'm going to plunge them in there, because then when I take them out, I can divide them and grow them on again for next year. So just going to put a little clump of those like that, 2 at that side. Now obviously you can take a bit more time when you're doing this, and position them. I can't see what it looks like, so I'm looking at it from the back. And then just to finish it off, a bit more colour in the pansy or the violas. I've got some yellow ones, but I've got the gold in there. So what I'm going to use are these lovely mauve and purple violas, and they've got such pretty faces on. I always think they look like little kittens, don't they? These pretty faces. And of course these will flower and flower, and as soon as the flowers fade, if you keep deadheading it, there's masses of flower buds there to come over the next several weeks. So again, these are going to be planted in, so these have got to make sure these are down in the compost. So I'm probably going to need about 5 or 6 to fill this container. So you want it to look nice and full in there with these beautiful little flowers. So we're just going to plant them in. We can get one, I think, in there, just make the hole and then just fill it round with compost like that. So we've got the flowers facing forwards, and then a couple at this side just to balance it out. So you can use anything you want, any colour scheme that you like the look of, and that one in there. So I'm not going to fit any more than that in. I think it's going to be full enough. The flowers will of course turn. And then what you can also do is, if you've got some stems that you've cut from the garden, if you've got some twisted willow like this here, or you've got some dogwoods with the lovely colourful stems, then sometimes just by pushing 1 or 2 stems in at the back, again, just gives it that little bit of height. These will gradually come into leaf because they'll take water in, but it just adds that little bit of extra structure to it and a bit of interest. And you can put all sorts of things in there, dogwoods, as I say, anything that you like. And then finally, just to finish off, just to give it some seasonal interest, and you can change this on a weekly or fortnightly basis. I've got some little milk bottles here, and I've picked the last of the daffodils from the garden. They've pretty much finished now. Here we are, middle of April. So these are in little jars with water, and I'm just going to push them down into the compost like that. So it just gives us another layer of colour there. And then of course, when these are finished, we can take these out and you can cut some other flowers from the garden, or buy a bunch of tulips or whatever's looking good at the time. And it just gives you that extra colour, extra seasonal interest. And this one's going to go in the middle. This is the star attraction. This is a daffodil that's actually called Joyce Fish. This was named after my mum. We named it after her a few years ago, sadly just before she died, but she loved daffodils. So this is a special daffodil to us. So we're going to put that in there in the centre so we can enjoy those lovely colours. Keep deadheading, keep it watered, a little bit of liquid feed, and that will look good for at least 2 months, and then we can take it out and we can do a summer container. So it's something you can do very easily. So have a go at a spring container. Well, thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and as always, thank you for the likes and shares that you give us. We'll be back in the vegetable garden next week when we're going to be doing more planting and sowing. So we'll see you then. Bye.